Hi, and welcome back to Reddit Terrible Stories. I told my best friend's fiance the truth about her cheating before their wedding. I never imagined I'd be the one holding the grenade that could blow up my best friend's wedding, but life has a way of throwing you into impossible situations. Sarah and I had been inseparable since our sophomore year of college shared dorm rooms, late night pizza runs, crying over breakups together. She was the closest thing I had to a sister, which is why, when she got engaged to Daniel last year, I was genuinely happy for her. He was kind, attentive, and clearly adored her. They looked like the picture-perfect couple. That illusion shattered one Friday night when I walked into our favorite bar to meet another friend. It was packed, loud, and smelled faintly of beer and fried food. I was squeezing through the crowd when I spotted Sarah in a corner booth. But she wasn't alone. She was leaning across the table, holding hands with a guy who was very much not Daniel. Even in the dim light, there was no mistaking the way they were looking at each other. Soft smiles, lingering touches. I froze, watching her lean in and kiss him. It wasn't some innocent peck either. It was the kind of kiss that spoke of history. I ducked behind a column, my heart racing. For a second, I convinced myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe it was an old friend. Maybe they'd just had too much to drink, maybe. But then she laughed in that flirtatious way I knew too well, and he slid his arm around her shoulders. My stomach sank. I couldn't stay there. I turned and left without saying a word, my mind a storm of confusion and anger. I barely slept that night, replaying the scene over and over. The next morning, I texted Sarah, asking if she was free to talk. She replied instantly, "Can't today, Daniel and I are doing cake tastings." The casual cheer in her message made me feel sick. For the next week, I debated what to do. I tried to convince myself it wasn't my place, that maybe it was a one-time mistake. But then I saw a tagged photo on Instagram, Sarah and the mystery guy at a concert, together 2 nights later. She wasn't even hiding it well. That's when the anger really set in. Not just because she was cheating, but because she was letting Daniel, who was head over heels for her, plan a wedding and a life with someone who wasn't being honest. I kept imagining his face on the wedding day, smiling at her with love while she harbored this secret. The decision was like swallowing glass, but I knew I couldn't stay silent. Still, I didn't want to blindside Sarah without giving her a chance to come clean. I invited her over for dinner, thinking maybe I could nudge her into telling me the truth. She showed up with wine and her phone buzzing nonstop, Daniel, asking about centerpiece options. I waited until after we ate to bring it up. "So, I saw you at O'Malley's last Friday," I said casually, watching her expression. She froze for half a second, then laughed. "Oh yeah, I was out with some friends." "Friends?" I pressed. "Because you were with a guy, and you kissed him." Her smile faltered. "It's complicated." "That's not complicated, Sarah. That's cheating." She rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. "It's not what you think. I've known Alex forever. We've been reconnecting, but it doesn't mean I don't love Daniel. They're just different parts of my life." That was the moment I knew she had no intention of stopping. She had compartmentalized her life so neatly, she didn't even feel guilty. And that was the night I realized if she wasn't going to tell him, I would. The following days felt like walking around with a live wire in my pocket. Every time my phone buzzed, I half expected it to be Sarah, begging me not to say anything, or Daniel, having somehow found out. But the messages I got were ordinary. Sarah sending me photos of bridesmaid dress options. Daniel asking if I could help coordinate the bachelorette party. It made my stomach churn. I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept circling back to that night in the bar, the way Sarah had brushed off my concerns with a casual shrug. The worst part, she seemed more invested in her wedding plans than ever. It wasn't the behavior of someone having second thoughts. It was the behavior of someone convinced she could have it all. That weekend, Daniel called me. His voice was bright and excited. He just booked their honeymoon. "She's going to lose her mind when she finds out," he said. "I've been saving for months to surprise her." I forced a laugh, my throat tight. Every word he said made the truth heavier. I could hear how much he loved her, how much he believed in their future. and I hated knowing that his future was built on a lie. After that call, I knew I couldn't wait much longer. The wedding was only 3 months away. If I told him now, it would give him time to process, to make decisions, to back out if he wanted. If I waited until after the wedding, the damage would be so much worse. But telling Daniel meant destroying my friendship with Sarah. I wasn't naive. I knew she'd never forgive me. Part of me wondered if I was ready to lose her. But another part, the part that believed in loyalty and honesty, knew that protecting her wasn't worth watching someone else get hurt. The real breaking point came the next week when Sarah texted me. Alex and I are going to that cabin this weekend. Can you cover for me if Daniel asks? She didn't even pretend anymore. It wasn't about guilt. It was about convenience. I stared at the message for a long time, my chest pounding. Then I typed back, no. Her reply was instant. Wow. Okay. I thought we were friends. Friends don't ask each other to lie. That night, I sat on my couch with my laptop open, staring at Daniel's name in my contacts. I rehearsed the conversation in my head over and over. There was no version of it that didn't end in disaster. But the longer I sat there, the more certain I became. Finally, I typed, hey, can we meet for coffee tomorrow? I need to talk to you about something important. His response came within minutes. Sure, everything okay. I almost typed back yes, but I stopped myself. I wasn't going to sugarcoat it. It's about Sarah. The next morning, I showed up early at the cafe, my hands trembling as I sipped on a coffee I couldn't taste. Daniel arrived a few minutes later, smiling warmly as he slid into the seat across from me. What's going on? He asked. And just like that, the words were in my throat, ready to detonate both their lives. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. My voice was steady, but my pulse was thrumming in my ears. Daniel, I need to tell you something, and I'm saying it because you deserve the truth. Sarah's been seeing someone else. For months. His smile faltered instantly. What are you talking about? I explained how I'd first noticed the late-night texts, how I'd caught her at the bar with Alex, how she'd admitted it when I confronted her. I didn't sugarcoat the details, but I also didn't embellish. I wanted him to hear the truth exactly as it had happened, without the poison of exaggeration. For a while, he just stared at me, his brow furrowed. No, she wouldn't. He shook his head, trying to laugh it off, but his voice cracked. Are you sure you're not misunderstanding something? Maybe they're just friends? She told me herself, I said quietly. The words seemed to land like a physical blow. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the table, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles went white. Why? Why are you telling me this? Because I care about you, I said, and because I wouldn't want to marry someone who was lying to me. Silence stretched between us. He was trying to process, but I could see the anger beginning to creep into his eyes. Not at her yet, but at the situation, at the fact that he was being forced to confront something he didn't want to believe. Finally, he muttered, I need to talk to her. He stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair, and left without another word. The moment he walked out, my stomach twisted. I didn't know what kind of storm I'd just unleashed, but I knew it was going to be ugly. It didn't take long. An hour later, my phone rang. Sarah's name flashing across the screen. I answered, and her voice came through like a blade. What the hell did you say to him? I told him the truth, I said. Her voice shot up an octave. You had no right. This is my relationship, not yours. Then why drag me into it? Why ask me to cover for you? Why make me watch him plan a future with you when you're... Shut up, she snapped. You don't understand. It's complicated. It's not complicated, I said, my own voice rising. You're cheating on him. There was a pause, and then she spat. We're done. Don't call me, don't text me, don't come to the wedding if there even is one. She hung up before I could respond. That night, my social media lit up with mutual friends messaging me. What happened between you and Sarah? Why is she saying you're trying to ruin her life? Is it true you made up lies about her? I didn't answer any of them. I knew the truth, and so did Daniel now. What they believed was out of my control. But I couldn't help wondering, had I done the right thing, or had I just set fire to everything for nothing? By morning, my phone was a battlefield of missed calls, angry texts, and cryptic messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Sarah had clearly gone into damage control mode, spinning the story in a way that made me look like the jealous, bitter friend out to ruin her happiness. From what I pieced together, she was telling people that I'd always had feelings for Daniel and that I'd made up the cheating to try to break them up. The audacity of it made my jaw clench. Not only was she lying to him, she was now lying about me to protect herself. Then came the message that really hit me. From Daniel. We need to talk. Can you meet me today? I agreed, though my stomach churned with dread. We met again at the same cafe as the night before, but the mood was completely different. He looked wrecked pale, dark circles under his eyes, his jaw tight. I talked to her, he began, his voice low and heavy. She admitted some of it. Said it was a mistake, that it didn't mean anything. She swore it was over. And do you believe her? I asked carefully. He hesitated. I don't know. Part of me wants to, because I love her, because the wedding is next week, but another part of me. He trailed off, rubbing his face. I feel like I don't even know who she is anymore. I didn't push him. He needed space to make his own decision. But before we left, he said something that stuck with me. If it's true she's still lying, I'll never forgive her, or myself. Later that day, the group chat for our mutual friends lit up. Sarah had posted an emotional paragraph about betrayal and fake friends who can't stand to see others happy. My name wasn't mentioned, but everyone knew who she meant. The comments were full of sympathy for her, people promising they'd stand by her, and thinly veiled jabs at me. It hurt more than I expected. Some of these people had been in my life for a decade, and now they were turning on me without even asking for my side. By evening, I got another text, this time from an unknown number. It was a screenshot. In it, Sarah and Alex, the guy she'd been cheating with, were sitting at a bar yesterday afternoon. His hand was on her knee, and her face was lit up in a smile I hadn't seen in months. There was no date stamp on the photo, but I knew that place, and I knew whoever sent this wanted me to act on it. I stared at it for a long time, debating whether to send it to Daniel. If I did, it would be the final nail in the coffin. If I didn't, I'd be letting him walk into his wedding blind. Either way, there was no going back now. I didn't sleep that night. The screenshot sat in my camera roll like a ticking time bomb, each glance at it setting off a new wave of anger and dread. I kept imagining Daniel's face when he saw it. Would it be relief that he finally had proof, or devastation that the wedding really was over? By sunrise, I'd made my decision. I texted Daniel. I have something you need to see. Please don't ignore this. He replied almost instantly. Come over. When I arrived, the house looked like a tornado had ripped through it. There were boxes half-packed, suit jackets draped over chairs, and wedding invitations tossed in a heap on the table. Daniel looked even worse than yesterday. Hair unkempt, eyes bloodshot. I handed him my phone without a word. He stared at the photo for a long time, his face unreadable. Then, quietly, he asked, When was this? Yesterday, I said. Someone sent it to me anonymously, but I recognize the place. It's the Blackthorn Pub. He closed his eyes, exhaling slowly like he was trying to keep himself from falling apart. She told me she was getting her nails done yesterday. Said she needed me time. His voice cracked. I almost believed her. He sat down heavily on the couch, the phone still in his hand. This is it. I can't marry her. A silence hung between us, heavy and final. Then he stood abruptly, grabbed his keys, and said, I'm going to confront her. Do you want me to come? I asked. He shook his head. No. If I see her with you there, she'll twist it. Make it about jealousy again. I need to do this alone. I left, but the rest of the day I was glued to my phone waiting for an update. It didn't come until late that evening. From Daniel, it's over. I called the wedding off. No details. Just that. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Sarah's social media exploded with posts about how Daniel was mentally unstable and had abandoned her days before the wedding. She still didn't admit to the cheating, Mutual friends were split, some cut her off, others cut me off. By the end of the week, my social circle looked completely different. The people I thought I could rely on either believed her lies or decided it was none of their business and stayed silent. But the worst part? Sarah wasn't done with me. I found out when I came home one evening to see a letter taped to my door. No envelope, no signature. Just a single piece of paper with 6 words scrawled in messy black ink. "You'll regret ruining my life." The note was short, but the venom in it was unmistakable. My stomach knotted as I read the words over and over. I knew Sarah was manipulative, but I had underestimated just how vindictive she could be when cornered. The next few days were a slow spiral into chaos. People I hadn't spoken to in months suddenly messaged me, asking why I'd told lies about Sarah or gotten her wedding canceled. A mutual friend called to warn me that Sarah was telling everyone I'd been in love with Daniel for years and had orchestrated the breakup so I could finally have him. It was absurd. But the worst part about lies is that they only need a few people to believe them to ruin your reputation. By midweek, I was being quietly uninvited from group events. An old friend blocked me on social media without explanation. Someone even posted in a local community group, hinting that I was a snake who betrayed their closest friend right before a wedding. My name wasn't mentioned, but everyone who knew us could piece it together. I tried to reach out to Daniel, but he wasn't responding to texts or calls. Part of me understood he had his own storm to weather, but the silence made me feel like I was alone in a fight I hadn't started. Then, one night, my phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. "Enjoy playing the hero? Hope it's worth it." I didn't need to guess who it was from. The tension was constant, making me paranoid. Every time I stepped out, I expected to run into someone who'd heard her twisted version of events. Every time my phone buzzed, I braced for another jab. And then came the real blow. I was called into a meeting at work with my manager, who said they'd received concerns about my professional integrity from an anonymous source. My manager didn't accuse me outright, but the message was clear. My personal drama had bled into my professional life. I left the office that day shaking with anger. Sarah wasn't just trying to socially isolate me, she was trying to destroy my stability entirely. That night, I made a decision. I was done playing defense. If she wanted a war, she was going to get one. The first step, making sure the truth about her cheating wasn't just something whispered between a handful of people, it was something she couldn't erase. If Sarah was going to twist the narrative, I had to make sure the truth was undeniable. No more whispered warnings, no more relying on Daniel to tell his side. I needed evidence-hard, irrefutable proof. I already had some. Screenshots of texts between Sarah and the guy she'd been cheating with. They were graphic enough to leave no room for misinterpretation. I also had timestamps that showed they were together on nights she told Daniel she was working late. The problem was that sharing them would be nuclear. Once I did it, there was no going back. I'd crossed the line from being the friend who told the truth to being the one who destroyed her socially. But Sarah had already set that fire. I was just choosing to stop pretending I wasn't in the middle of it. I decided to send the evidence, privately at first, to the people who had started pulling away from me. My message was short. I know you've heard Sarah's version. I think you deserve to see mine. The reactions were instant and varied. Some people apologized for doubting me. Others stayed silent, which I took as a quiet admission they'd bought her story, but couldn't argue with the proof now. One mutual friend even sent me a voice note saying, "Wow, she made me think you were the problem. I'm sorry." That felt good, but it wasn't enough. Sarah had been able to smear me so effectively because she'd done it publicly. If I wanted the truth to actually stick, it had to be just as public. So I posted. Not a rant, not name-calling, just a clear statement. Since my name has been dragged through the mud lately, here's the truth. I told someone's fiancé about their ongoing affair because I thought they deserved honesty. Here's the proof. Then I attached the screenshots. It took less than an hour for it to explode. Comments poured in, some in shock. Some saying they always suspected, others just tagging people so they could see. My phone buzzed nonstop. Sarah didn't stay silent for long. She posted a furious wall of text accusing me of invading her privacy and destroying her life out of jealousy, but the damage was done. For every person defending her, there were 10 pointing at the evidence. That night, I got a text from Daniel for the first time in weeks. Thank you. I know it must have been hard to put that out there, but it means a lot. It didn't erase the mess, but it was the first time I felt like I might actually come out of this with my head held high. Of course, I knew Sarah wouldn't just slink away quietly. She never did. And I was right, because the next day, she showed up at my door. I didn't open the door right away. When I looked through the peephole and saw Sarah standing there, hair a mess, eyes wild, clutching her phone like it was a weapon, my first instinct was to pretend I wasn't home. But she knocked again, harder this time, her voice cutting through the door. Open the door, or I'll just stand here until your neighbors think I'm some crazy ex. I sighed. If I ignored her, she'd probably start yelling things loud enough for the entire street to hear. I unlocked the door, but left the chain on. What do you want, Sarah? Her eyes narrowed the second she saw me. What do I want? I want you to take that post down, right now. You had no right to... No right to what? Show the truth? I cut in. She leaned closer to the gap in the door, her voice low but venomous. You've humiliated me. My parents saw that. My boss saw it. Do you have any idea what you've done to my life? Oh, you mean the life you built while lying to Daniel for months? The life where you played the perfect fiancé while sleeping with someone else? My tone was sharp, sharper than I expected, but I didn't care anymore. You're just mad you can't spin it your way anymore. Her jaw tightened. You think you're some moral hero? You're pathetic. You've always been jealous of me, and now you've finally found your chance to drag me down. I almost laughed. Jealous? You think I want your life? I'd rather be single forever than have to lie and cheat just to keep someone. She flinched, and for a second, I thought maybe I'd struck a nerve. But then her expression hardened again. You're going to regret this. People don't forget betrayal. I leaned on the doorframe. Neither does Daniel. That was the last thing I said before I shut the door in her face. She didn't knock again. She just stood there for a moment, breathing hard, before stomping off. I thought that was the end of it for the day, but within an hour, I found out she'd decided to take this even further, because my phone started lighting up with unknown numbers, calling me one after the other. And the voicemails they left were nothing short of vicious. Apparently, Sarah had found a new way to retaliate. The first voicemail I listened to was from some guy I didn't recognize, his voice dripping with mockery. Hey, just wanted to let you know you're a terrible friend. No wonder you're single. People like you die alone. Then he laughed and hung up. The second was worse. A woman, maybe someone from Sarah's work or her extended friend group, saying, You've ruined someone's life for attention. Hope it was worth it, because now everyone knows what kind of snake you are. By the third one, I realized Sarah had clearly told a very specific version of events, one where I was the villain who made up cheating accusations to ruin her wedding out of spite. And judging by how quickly the messages were coming in, she'd rallied quite a few people to her side. For the rest of the day, my phone was basically unusable. I muted calls and stopped checking notifications. But every time I peeked, there was something new. An Instagram comment calling me a jealous loser. A DM telling me to watch my back. Even someone sending me a photoshopped meme of me with the words, homewrecker friend, plastered over my face. It wasn't just online either. That evening, I stopped by my favorite coffee shop, only to find the barista someone I'd chatted with for years, giving me a frosty, awkward smile. Clearly, Sarah's narrative was spreading beyond people I even knew personally. But here's the thing. Despite the harassment, I didn't regret telling Daniel the truth. I regretted that it had to happen in such a public, messy way. But if the alternative was watching him marry someone who would inevitably betray him again, I could live with the fallout. Still, I wasn't going to just sit there and take it. So I started documenting everything. Screenshots of the messages, voicemails saved, names and numbers written down. because I had a feeling that Sarah's campaign to destroy my reputation was going to cross a line sooner rather than later, and when it did, I wanted to be ready. That line came sooner than I expected. 2 nights later, someone slipped an envelope under my apartment door. Inside was a printed sheet of paper with just 3 words typed in bold: "You're next, liar." It wasn't a threat to expose me. It was a threat, period. And suddenly, this wasn't just about drama anymore. The moment I saw those words on the paper, my stomach twisted. Up until then, Sarah's smear campaign had been infuriating, but mostly just noise. Now, it was something darker. I called the police, explained what had been happening, and showed them the note along with my growing pile of evidence screenshots, voicemails, even a couple of social media posts where people joked about paying me a visit. The officer I spoke to took it seriously enough to file a report and suggested I consider getting a restraining order if things escalated. When I hung up, I sat there in my apartment, the reality of it all finally settling in. This was never just about me telling Daniel the truth. It was about Sarah needing to control the narrative at any cost, and her willingness to weaponize anyone who would listen. The turning point came a week later. Daniel reached out. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "I wanted to let you know," he said, "that I spoke to 2 of Sarah's other exes. You weren't lying, not even close." He explained that both had confirmed affairs while she was with them. One even sent him old text messages that sounded almost identical to the ones I'd shown him. "I'm sorry for doubting you," he added quietly. That apology meant more than I could admit in the moment. It didn't undo the harassment, but it reminded me that the truth had mattered to someone who needed it. As for Sarah, the wedding was officially canceled. I heard through the grapevine that she'd moved out of state not long after. Though whether it was to start fresh or because the gossip had turned on her, I couldn't say. The online attacks died down shortly after her departure, and I slowly began reclaiming my normal life. Still, I can't say things went back to how they were. My social circle was smaller now. Some people had chosen her side without even asking for mine, and I didn't have the energy to win them back. But the ones who remained? They were the kind who valued honesty over convenience. Sometimes I still get this gnawing feeling, wondering if I could have handled it differently. Maybe told Daniel in a quieter, more private way. But deep down, I know Sarah's behavior would have erupted no matter what. People like her don't just let go. They lash out when they lose control. In the end, I lost a friend, but I kept my integrity. And I learned that sometimes telling the truth isn't just a risk, it's a line in the sand. One you draw knowing full well the storm it might bring. And when it comes, you stand your ground, even if you're standing alone.